I'm Dylan Ratigan. I've interviewed nearly every CEO and most world leaders during the past 25 years. And now on Bootstrapping, I'm turning my attention to the new CEOs and the irrepressible entrepreneurs leading the next generation of innovation in the world. Welcome back to tastylive. I am Dylan Ratigan. Time for another episode of Bootstrapping. Our guest today, yet another CEO from the Republic platform, is named Pierre Mantovani, the company called Evolution Devices. And it's a pleasure to meet you, Pierre.
Yeah, good to meet you as well, Dylan.
So I obviously did my homework a little bit in advance of our discussion. Specifically, it sounds like you say it's a mobility company, and at first I was like, oh, is it like a flying taxi or is it like this? Yeah. When you say mobility, you mean literally the movement of people by putting basically wearable technology, if I understand this correctly, on that someone puts on their body that improves their ability to walk. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we're focused on mobility, physical mobility, human movement.
But I mean, you can't really, if I have a limp from, whatever, some past event of horrors, you can't fix the limp. What impairments are you addressing?
Yeah, so first, we're focused on people who are living with mobility impairments, and in particular, we're focused on working with people who are living with a mobility impairment because of a neurological impairment. So someone who's had maybe like a stroke, spinal cord injury, multiple sclerosis, really common, and they're not able to pick up their foot or bend their knee well due to some sort of partial paralysis. So what we're doing is...
So the focus is on damaged nervous system as the first domain.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what does your technology do if an individual has a damaged nervous system for whatever reason? How are you mitigating, or what is your remedy to that?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we have, you mentioned a wearable. So it's an external device. It goes over the body. And what it's doing is understanding that someone has, partial paralysis, so still some ability to start walking. And it understands every single person's walking style. So we have some algorithms that we built that understand someone's walking style and whether you're trying to walk. And then it actually sends an electrical impulse to the muscles and the nerve region externally. So through the skin to be able to pick up the foot, bend the knee at the right time.
So literally, it's a synthetic exoskeleton of the nervous system, or a rudimentary set of electrical impulses at the very least to replace the missing circuits of the nervous system. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. It's there to help where you lost that signal that's supposed to be there to pick up the foot, bend the knee. That signal that's supposed to be sent that's lost, we're almost stepping in there and activating it for you.
Mm-hmm. And where are you in is this a prototype? Is this a deployed product?
No, so we've been working on this for quite some time, a little over 5 years now. We have submitted a pretty big milestone for us. We submitted it to the FDA in April of this year. So what we need is approval from the FDA to start launching and selling the device. So we're pretty close to that. We're hoping to be able. We're pretty optimistic we'll get it by the end of the year. The device is finalized. It's done. It's packaged. It's being used by quite a few hospitals in the U.S. as a research tool now. So we got a lot of research studies going with it. And we've got quite a few beta testers, pilot testers throughout the US that have been using it and getting some really great results, some really amazing life-changing stuff. So it's there. It's almost ready to go.
And what are you raising money for on Republic?
So we're raising money on Republic to get to that final finish line of getting the FDA clearance, and then being able to initiate that launch that we have. So actually get the device out to the people that have been on the wait list for us, and really start rolling that out by the end of the year this year and the start of next year.
So legal, regulatory, and marketing in effect.
Exactly, yeah.
If you can replace missing central nervous system functionality to help someone walk in this case, are there other nervous system failures or flaws that you can remedy with this device in a different application?
So the way that we see it, and we have a pretty big vision for what we call is timed electrical stimulation, right? So it's actually activating muscles at the right time. And this is all kind of, so the base has been there for a bit of activating muscles, electrical stimulation, but what we are applying is this idea of using it at the right time for these different muscle groups with these new AI algorithms, right? So what I foresee is, yeah, we're able to kind of help someone pick up their foot for walking, but as things progress, there's a lot of potential for different movements, right? Whether someone's trying, let's stick with this, right? So it's not just to help someone pick up their foot while they walk. There's a lot that goes into it around rehabilitating the whole walking cycle and all of your muscles around it, right? So you need to do exercises that a physical therapist sends to you, right? So some of these things that we see is one, being able to collect information about how people are progressing, but then also activating muscles. Say someone needs to do a squat, right? Someone needs to do side steps, but they need a little assistance because their muscles are weak, or same goes with the nerves, right? The nerves are weak. So as we start learning more and more about movement, we can keep applying this type of stimulation to help people do those movements correctly. And it doesn't end at just people who are living with these, neurological impairments. We see this being applied in a lot of different areas as you age, and athletic potentially in the future.
And so again, if I'm understanding you correctly, the real proprietary aspect of your company is not the use of the electrical stimulation to trigger muscle response, but is the deployment of AI to interpret the exact right moments to stimulate which muscles how much. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, definitely. It's the combination of the two, right?
And then is that patented? Is that something that's defensible for you as a company?
Yeah, so we patented it last year, and there's quite a bit around the way that we created the algorithm, some trade secrets as well. But yeah, we do have a patent involved with that particular thing that you were mentioning, the timing plus the electrical stimulation.
And so what are the first phases of sales? In other words, who is the early adopter for this?
So we're focused on working with physical therapy clinics first. So we're taking a B2B2C approach. So we're focused on getting the device to these clinics who can use the device in the clinic, right? I was mentioning a little bit about the idea of being able to collect data, which is something really huge for physical therapy right now. We're moving towards this kind of idea of quantitative care, and really generally personalized medicine can be applied to physical therapy in this case. So they need tools to be able to track how people are progressing. That's where our device, the EvoWalk, comes in. So they can use it in the clinic, get some devices for patients in the clinic and to take home and come back and track. The patient gets familiar with the device and it works as an assistive tool, right? Like we were mentioning. So once they're done with their care, they would buy a device directly from us as well. So we're focused on getting that device into that first part of the clinic initially. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're starting with.
And this will be a little bit more speculative set of questions for you, but you have, we'll at least call it semi-informed speculation based on what you've learned about the ability of AI and the ability of electricity to provide mechanical stimulation to bypass, non-functioning nerves in people. And obviously, I'm sure you're familiar to one degree or another with the Elon Musk project with the computer chip in the head, and part of that is tied to then using that to manipulate stimulations that cause the body to move and these sorts of things. So I'll name that. I guess I'll call that whole domain Bionics, right? Going back. I mean, are you imagining you can cure blindness? I mean, how far does this go? How far can a machine take a human that has been damaged?
Yeah. So for me, the brain is one of the next frontiers, right? And I think this whole field is especially with what you're talking about there with Neuralink, brain-computer interfaces is huge. As we learn more about how the brain works, we know quite a bit about some of the things like motor control, so things like movement, and things like Neuralink are working really closely with, restoring people who have full paralysis as well. Some really cool stuff going on there and tracking the brain. So I think as we learn, the short answer is as we learn a lot more about the brain, a lot of it works through electricity, right? Your nerves are sending and firing through electricity. So I do think that there's going to be a lot of things that we start to develop and find out and potentially cure, in the next 10, 15, maybe sooner, years around some of these parts of the brain that as we start understanding, I think we'll be able to make tools to actually help. In the case of vision, potentially is one that's coming up soon. And then some more complex stuff for sure.
And what about what you're doing relative to walking? Could that be done with hand? Like if somebody has an impaired hand mobility or
Definitely.
or a hip
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that's actually one of our big visions here is being able to understand these different movements. And then, we're starting with walking. That's what we focused on initially. There's a lot of people with partial paralysis. It's something that we could really tackle. But it's very like one of the big things we wanted to do was create something that was very easy to take from one part of the body to the other. So our big thing is the device is sleek. It's a wearable, really small, half the size of a credit card or half the size of an iPhone, the size of a credit card, maybe. So you can imagine taking that same thing and instead of having it on your leg, moving it up to the arm, software updates on your phone, right? It's connected with an app and you're ready to use it for arm movements, right? And then as we start learning these more complex things, right? Maybe like throwing, we start saying, okay, maybe we need to put the device on the arm and connect it to some parts of the shoulder. And we get some better throwing motions. And that's how we see it kind of building up. But in the initial parts, a lot of people who have, someone who's had a stroke, for example, has full paralysis on one side of the body most of the time, right? So we're helping them with walking right now, and they need something for, throwing, for arm movements and things like that. So very easily, that's going to be a next step for us is taking this device and putting it in the upper body.
And are you imagining that success for your business means being acquired by a larger medical device company, or are you imagining, establishing yourself as a sovereign medical device company in this domain?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of potential for like what we were just talking about, right? There's a lot of potential for multiple products, multiple body parts. So we could definitely see ourselves growing. But for me, the biggest thing is going to be getting our tools out to the most people possible, and that could potentially be. And it's really common in our field to work with some of these larger medical device companies, especially I think as some of these things in the neuro space, start growing. This industry starts getting a little more investment as well, right? Like now. So I definitely see it, if it means that we can get our tools to more people and get more resources, it's definitely an option that I'd take.
With the product that you have right now, how big do you believe the marketplace is for this one product?
So I think it's really big. There's about 6 million people that are living in the US alone, living with this problem. So we're targeting a multi-billion-dollar opportunity if you start thinking about how much we're charging for the device and the recurring fees that we can charge for what we're building. So it's a really big opportunity. So when we're talking about, there's two. We're talking about the B2B2C approach, right? There is the tracking of the device, which is a really big thing right now, I mentioned. And the reason it's a big thing is because there is the ability for the physical therapist to bill insurance for remote monitoring of their patients. So what we're building is, as part of the device, the software for the physical therapist to be able to track their patients, right? So we have a monthly fee for that in the clinical model, as well as the consumables on the device. So I haven't talked too much about it, but the device itself, the way it sends the impulse through the skin is through these pads called electrodes. So those electrodes wear out over time. So people need to buy the electrodes as well. Those are kind of the consumable, something that we charge usually a monthly. We have different ways of doing it, especially when we launch. But it's both the software as a service that we provide and the consumables.
And how effective of a remedy is it? And to what degree have you had any real scientific research to prove its efficacy? If you're saying that somebody's 50% limited and they want to get back to 100%, what percentage of that recovery is your device capable of creating? And to what degree has that been demonstrated in a statistically significant way?
Yeah. So there are a couple of, so one thing that I want to preface this with too is that it's very different depending on what the disease is that's causing the impairment, right? So someone who's had a stroke will have a little bit more of an opportunity to recover than someone who has something like a progressive multiple sclerosis, where we're looking to kind of just get people to be more active, right? In the latter, trying to get people to be more active and keep their function for a little bit longer. And then, so all I have to say is we actually do have some really great results. We've been working with a lot of clinics. So I mentioned that the basis of the science is pretty well known, that functional electrical stimulation can help people walk a bit faster. It gets people objectively versus what they've had, right? And subjectively, really versus what they've had. Typically, people get a brace to hold their foot up in place, right? People that we're working with, which is pretty wild. It's literally just a brace that goes around their foot to hold their foot in place. So with our type of devices, these stimulation devices, people are able to get something more comfortable to be able to pick up their foot while they walk. Now, with our internal studies, we've seen up to a 20% improvement in people's walking speed and up to a 10-time increase in their steps per day in just 8 weeks. So that was in our preliminary studies. Plus, we have quite a few that we've been working with some clinics, some abstracts that were presented around telerehabilitation. That's been one of our big focuses because we want to show that our device can be used while people are at home. So we've had some really great increases in telerehabilitation when we work with our partner clinics. Some really great stuff, which is kind of showing and why we think we'll be able to get this FDA clearance before the end of the year as well. Our device is pretty safe and effective.
And again, and how much money are you raising?
So through Republic, we're raising about $500,000 total, but we're looking to raise anywhere between 200 to 500 through the crowdfunding platform. After we get our FDA clearance, we're going to be looking to do a bit of a larger venture round. But right now, we're taking this opportunity to work with the crowdfunded group of people to get in before we get the FDA clearance.
Pierre, it's a pleasure to make the acquaintance. Thanks for enlightening us a little bit about your activities.
No, it was great to be here. Thanks for all the questions. Yeah, it was a fun conversation.
Pierre Mantovani, Evolution Devices, the name of the firm. You're watching Bootstrapping on Tasty Live. I am Dylan Ratigan, and we are back with more after this.